Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1181B, and today's date is January 18th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Pentagon Plans to Create a Doomsday EMP Artillery Shell that will cripple a city's electronics. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we know the Russian hacking hoax was just that, a hoax. And more than 20 U.S. intelligence, military, and diplomatic veterans, well, they're calling on President Obama to release evidence backing up the allegations that Russia aided the Trump campaign in the election. Or admit that the proof is not there. Now, on page A10, Times investigative reporter Scott Shane pointed out, what is missing from the public report is what many Americans most eagerly anticipated, hard evidence to back up the agency's claims that Russian government engineered the election attack. That is a significant omission. Shane said, instead, the message from the agencies essentially amounts to trust us. Yes, that's what they do today. They use propaganda, and all they want you to do is trust them. You don't need to see anything else. And he went on to say there is no discussion of the forensics used to recognize the handiwork of known hacking groups. No mention of intercepted communications between the Kremlin and the hackers. No hint of spies reporting from inside Moscow's propaganda machinery. And the NSA picked up absolutely nothing. And we have to remember something very, very important. Clapper lied under oath to the Senate Intelligence Committee on March 12, 2013, about the NSA dragnet activities. Congress asked him, are you spying on the American people? He said no. Later, he apologized, but he lied when he was asked that question. So, sorry if we don't trust you right now, but we need the real hard facts if you want us to believe. Now, Biden is out there, and he was giving a speech in the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and he took aim at Trump and Russian President Putin. And he was going on about many different things, but it was scaremongering, war rhetoric. And you have to remember, this information that comes out is from the CIA, from the government, and they like to scare the people because it allows them to do things they normally wouldn't be allowed to do. They put fear into the people, and they can pursue other avenues. And that's why they have false flags. That's why they use terrorism. That's why they're using cyber attacks. This is what they've been doing. And Biden was out there, and he took aim at Putin and Trump, saying that there are many countries in Europe right now slated to hold elections this year, and Russia, well, they're going to meddle in the democratic process once again. They're going to hack these countries, and we're going to see a different outcome. Now, what's really happening right now is that the elite, those who were in power, they are very worried about what is about to happen, because they know that people are moving in a different direction. They know they don't want the leaders that are now in control. They don't want them anymore. They want different people, just like in the U.S. And these individuals, well, they need to blame someone for this. It wasn't their fault. It was because of Russia. They're changing the election results. They're hacking the systems. It's all this fake news. And you can see they're using excuse after excuse to explain away why all this is happening. So the bottom line, according to the vice president of the only U.S. president to have been at war every day of their 8-year term, the American people have unwittingly voted a man into office who puts the entire world order at risk of collapse. Very interesting. So Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, well, he snapped back. And I guess he couldn't take it anymore because he lashed out at the ongoing U.S. election scapegoating fiasco where they're blaming Russia, saying the leaders and top officials from the UK, Germany, France have grossly interfered in U.S. internal affairs, campaigned for Hillary Clinton, and openly demonized Donald Trump, and so did the corporate media, which they always seem to forget. And this comes back to one thing and one thing only. They are worried about their power. They're worried about losing control. And they're nervous and afraid because they see what's happening around the globe. Look what they've done to the world. We're in a huge amount of debt. The unemployment rate is very high in many countries. It's getting worse. Countries that have been put into debt so much that they can't get their way out of it, they're selling off assets to bankers. And all the wealth has been siphoned up to the 1%. And now they want to tax more people to pay for what they've done. And the people are saying, no. And think about this. Go back to the time where there were kings and queens, when they kept on taxing the people. Tax after tax. They're living in mud. They can't make ends meet. The people finally say, we've had enough. We can't take this. That's what's happening right now. The people are rising up and they're saying, we're done with you. You had your chance and all you cared about was yourself. You didn't care about the people. You didn't care about creating jobs. You cared about siphoning the wealth from all of us to you. Now, we understand that the U.S. and NATO, they're out there bringing troops, assets up to Russia's border. And we know that there's troops in Norway right now. And Norway, well, they're doing something else. They are joining NATO's anti-missile shield targeting Russia. And they are expected to finalize this deal by year end. And we can see right now that Norway's right-wing Prime Minister, Erna Solberg, already said in 2015 statement, it is necessary for us to participate in this. As a committed NATO member, we should also be committed to the part of the strategy, the missile defense system. Now, this is a significant shift from Norway's stance 15 years ago in 2003 when U.S. President George W. Bush scrapped the anti-ballistic missile treaty, supposedly to counter threats from Iran. The move was universally condemned across Norwegian political spectrum. And we can see that everyone is climbing aboard the Russian aggression train, and they're preparing for, I guess, a war, because all they're doing is continually provoking Russia by doing this. Now, Russia is going to be setting up their missile system because they're very nervous about what NATO and the U.S. is doing in other countries that are close to Russia. And NATO right now fears that the missile shield will alter the strategic balance. And of course, this is what's going to happen. They know this. They want Russia to build up their arsenal. They want this to happen. They want to provoke Russia. They want some type of war, and they're going to try to get it any way they possibly can. Now, Russia is out there, and this is coming from Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. He is saying that he is ready to sit down with President-elect Donald Trump to talk about nuclear armed disarmament, ready to talk about Syria, and he believes that the two could solve a lot of the world's problem working together. Now, we'll have to see what Trump does, but we can see right now they do want to work together and hopefully iron out all the issues. Now, the elite, on the other hand, they don't want this to happen. So they're going to try to do whatever they possibly can to mess this up. And they're going to try to box Trump, in a corner here and try to say, yes, Russia just did this, Russia just attacked that, and they're going to try to make him go to war. Now, we see the U.S. out in Ukraine. They are still training battalions of armed forces out in Ukraine. Last year, the U.S. trained about 6 battalions. This year, they're training another 3 battalions. And they're continually doing this, and they're not stopping. So we can see at this point, whatever the elite were doing, they're still pushing their goal forward. We see Russia and Turkey. They have staged their first joint airstrike against the Islamic State in Syria. They signed a deal, and now they are working together, and they're bombing the town of Al-Bab in Aleppo, and they are pushing back the paid mercenaries. We see Putin, Merkel, and Hollande. Well, they're discussing the Ukraine-Syrian crisis right now, and Putin is informing his counterparts about the preparations for the forthcoming talks on Syria backed by Russia, Turkey, that are taking place in Kazakhstan on January 23rd. So we'll have to see what comes out of that meeting. We understand that Russia has extended an invitation to Trump to join the talks, but we'll have to see how this all comes about and if Trump actually goes out and joins the talks. We see U.S. Congresswoman, this is Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii. Well, she's going to visit Damascus. She is on a fact-finding mission to end the war plaguing the country. Tulsi felt it was important to meet with a number of individuals and groups, including religious leaders, humanitarian workers, refugees, and government and community leaders. Now, I don't know if she's going to be meeting President Assad, but we do know Gabbard is one of the few members of the U.S. Congress that has spoken out against the overthrow of Assad. And we can see that she's going there to find out what is really happening. And we'll have to wait to see what she reports. We see the U.S., they are increasing airdrops of supplies to the moderate rebels inside of Syria. They're dropping weapons, ammunition, and other equipment to a lot of the opposition forces around the Raqqa area. And of course, what we're seeing right now is they have dropped about 6 of these weapon drops, ammunition drops in December, and they're planning on dropping a lot more. Now again, they're still supporting the moderate rebels. They're still supporting the paid mercenary, the terrorist groups. They are still pushing towards their goal. They haven't let up as of yet. Now we understand that Obama, well, he pardoned part of Chelsea Manning's sentence. Now, Chelsea Manning was convicted in 2013 of leaking hundreds of thousands of classified documents about U.S. national security activities to WikiLeaks. Those documents included diplomatic cables, military intelligence in Iraq and Afghanistan, and video files showing U.S. strikes against terrorists, and in one instance showing strikes that killed 2 Reuters journalists. Now, by granting Manning's clemency, Obama admits that the massive leak of classified intelligence information was damaging, but not so damaging as to warrant a 35-year prison sentence. So how does Obama and his party explain the sudden about-face on Manning and their forgiveness of Manning's intelligence betrayal that jeopardized the fabric of U.S. democracy and endangered U.S. national security? Are we to believe that John Podesta's emails as worthy enough for conflict with Russia, but Manning's classified document release that exposed the highest level of U.S. military intelligence information is now considered forgivable? Or can we simply conclude that Obama's Red Scare is simply a political ploy to damage Trump and excuse Hillary Clinton and to divert attention from the email scandal and what's actually inside the emails? Now, Samantha Powers was out there. This is the outgoing U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. And in her last speech, she says something very interesting. She issued a dire warning, saying that Putin and his government will seek to destabilize the international order, and they're just getting started. She said it would be deeply naive and deeply negligent to think that those who have discovered vulnerabilities in our system would not try to exploit them again and again and again. And we do have to remember, Janet Napolitano, when she was leaving office, she was head of DHS, said it's not if we are cyber attacked, it is when. They knew at some point that they would have to move forward with some type of cyber attack scare. They would have to create it out of thin air. They would need to use it. That's why they're saying when. This is why they're saying Russia is going to use it over and over and over. because they're getting to that point where they're going to need this event to cover up everything that they have done. Now, there is an update on Project Veritas about Disrupt J20, where they were looking to shut down traffic, chain up trains. Information was given to the police and FBI, and those individuals now, well, it looks like they're not going through with their plans at this point. But there are other groups that are out there, and they're looking to completely shut down everything during the inauguration. And again, we're going to have to watch the situation very, very closely as we get closer to this, which is in about 2 days or so. Now, the Pentagon, they are planning to build a Doomsday artillery shell. And the shell is going to contain an electromagnetic pulse weapon. And it will be powerful enough to cripple an entire city's electronics. It will shut everything down. Now, the Pentagon is calling for a non-kinetic effects weapon for 155 millimeter projectiles. And the shell would be fired, and everything will be completely shut down. And right now, the solicitation from the Pentagon is calling for a non-explosive EMP artillery shell, which would cripple infrastructure, shut down computer systems, and bring the city to a screeching halt. Which is very interesting at this point in time that they're looking to do this. And it seems that they're looking for more and more ways of shutting down cities to make it easier for regime change. Now, we understand that these individuals, the elite, the central bankers, their system is coming down. It cannot be sustained. Biden and all the others are out there realizing, even those in Davos, Switzerland, the elite, they're out there realizing that the people are not going along with them anymore. They're going in an opposite direction. And those leaders that they depend on, well, they might be voted out of office. And as we move closer and closer to these elections, as the system deteriorates, as they build the narrative of blaming it on Russia, blaming it on Trump, blaming it on China, North Korea, whoever they're going to blame it on, they're preparing to create something we've never seen before. They're creating an event to try to explain away why all this is happening. You can already see it, how they're pointing the fingers at other countries. Well, Russia is doing this with their cyber attacking. The fake news is out there, and this fake news from Russia is convincing people to think a different way. Instead of saying that, you know what, the people are realizing, we're losing jobs. We don't have work. Our wealth has been siphoned up to the 1%, and it's getting worse. They're completely disconnected at this point. But they're not going to give up their control. They're not going to give up their power. They're going to fight to the very end, even if it means starting a war. Even if it means using a false flag on their own people to get us into war. Because this is what they do. Because when all else fails and they don't see any way they can get this moving forward, they will revert to a false flag. They wanted to get into Afghanistan. They wanted to get into Iraq. Well, how did they do it? They needed a false flag. It was 9/11. They used this for everything. Going after terrorists in other countries. Using drone strikes. They will use the next event to push their agenda forward. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.